when we're trying to achieve a new thing, set a goal, achieve a goal, whether that's landing a new job or whatever it is any of us set out to achieve, there's always going to be that little bit of resistance. And I talked about that a couple of weeks ago, and maybe I even mentioned the book, The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield, which I highly recommend. It's about getting out of your creative blocks, but here's the deal. We get blocked with a lot of stuff. We set a goal and then we immediately start resisting that goal and we never get to the place that we want to get. Welcome to the Love Your Work Life podcast, where you will get encouragement, strategies, all the things you need to love your work life. This is about transformational, strength-based coaching for career, for leadership, for life. I'm your host, Elissa Shuck. Let's get started. When I was at Nordstrom, we did a team outing. I was a manager buyer in one of the stores in Oregon, and our store manager planned an event for all of us, all of her team, to go river rafting down the Deschutes River. And since then, I've looked it up a couple times because I remember it was kind of scary. And I really didn't want to go. Let's be real. I just have never been into those big events and whatnot. And I'm certainly not an outdoorsy, athletic person. So part of me was kind of freaking out about all of that. So anyway, but I went because you know what? I'm a team player. You know what? I thought it was wonderful that she was arranging this for all of us. So I went and it was kind of crazy. Like everybody got to pick their groups of people with the raft. And the raft I was in, I think it was all of us who didn't really want to be there. So there was 8 of us who were really concerned about this river rafting trip. But it turned out so great. We had such an awesome guide. He was on point. He said, when I tell you to paddle, you paddle. And when I tell you to paddle hard, you paddle hard. And we made it. It was a great trip. We stayed away from the fray. We told him we don't want to be in the fray of people flipping each other's boats over and throwing water on each other. And so he kept us out of that kind of crazy fray. But what was so beautiful and what I so appreciated about it on the bus ride back was that this was an analogy for life. When we're trying to achieve a new thing, set a goal, achieve a goal, whether that's landing a new job or whatever it is any of us set out to achieve, there's always going to be that little bit of resistance. And I talked about that a couple of weeks ago, and maybe I even mentioned the book, The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield, which I highly recommend. It's about getting out of your creative blocks, but here's the deal. We get blocked with a lot of stuff. We set a goal and then we immediately start resisting that goal and we never get to the place that we want to get. So this analogy of a river, of the flow of a river and just going with the flow. We did not paddle upstream, my friends, but guess what? We hit some rapids. And we had to make some maneuvers. We had some places where we needed to think clearly and focused and paddle hard. And that's just kind of what life is. That's what achieving goals is. We have the river, this small little event floating from one end to the other. And then we have workplaces and goals, and then we have the macro of life. And it does nobody any good to be paddling upstream. And unfortunately, I think that's what a lot of this hustle culture, this grit, the language and messaging of grit and perseverance. It's like, man, you want to reach the summit, you climb. And clearly there's things to do. But it's really more like the river. You're going to hit some bumps. You're going to have some rocks in your way. You're going to have to maneuver. But the overall is a flow. The overall is a movement with the current instead of against the current. And that is the best way to achieve a goal. Think about that for a second. We've been taught that we've got to grind, we've got to sacrifice, we've got to hustle. But neuroscience, and I would even say ancient wisdom, tells us a very different story. Our brains and our state of being is what determines our results more than the system, more than the process, more than the to-do list. And there's a lot of systems out there. And maybe there is one that will work for you, but not a single system of how to achieve a goal will work if you don't get your head right. It's not about more effort. It's actually about more alignment. Another great Nordstrom story I have is when I had just become a manager. A bunch of us managers were brought in for some training, and the training was by an organization called the Pacific Institute, Lewis Tice, and the program was called Investment in Excellence. And I really loved that stuff. And Nordstrom was one of the first places that really introduced me to the idea that, hey, you invest in yourself and you invest in your people. And what was so awesome is that this program was about achieving goals, but it wasn't the mechanics of it. It was the neuroscience of it. It was the mindset of it. And I still have that giant binder on my bookshelf. It was a very intense, comprehensive program. But the key is that achieving goals is something that happens from the inside out. There's not going to be a system, there's not going to be a plan or a strategy that will give you long-term success and goal achievement if you don't have the neuroscience and the mindset of goal achievement, because the systems don't work if you're not tapping into how your brain actually drives results. I heard someone say the other day, our brains are a goal achieving machine. We don't have to train our brain to achieve a goal. We just have to get in alignment. We just have to tap into the things that we already have. Now, one thing I've talked about it plenty, and that is the reticular activating system. It is our brain's filter. It decides what we notice and what we act upon based on what we believe and expect. I heard Mel Robbins say one time that she starts every day expecting to see hearts, heart shapes. And she does. She sees them everywhere. Could be a potato chip, could be a rock, could be a cloud. Because she set that expectation and she believes that is what she's going to see. This is how our brain works. If you tell your brain what matters to you, it will show you more of it. This is just the way it works. So, what do we want to do? Well, we want to tell our brain what matters. We want to set that intention. We want to say, hey, this is the goal I have in mind. We don't have to have the how. We just have to have a very clear picture. The picture has to be clear, the picture has to be vivid, and you got to put some emotion behind it. You got to feel what that feels like. That is going to elevate this process that your reticular activating system is already doing for you automatically. It's why when you start out with a bad day, everything seems to go wrong. If you start out with a good day, man, things are just falling into place. You have synchronicities all over. Remember your reticular activating system. The next thing is neuroplasticity. And if you've been engaging with me at all, you know I really love physics and neuroscience and how that integrates with just how we do life. Well, neuroplasticity is about how the repetition of thoughts will rewire your neurological pathways. That means the more consistent focus you put on a desired result, it will shape your default patterns. And you won't be walking around unconscious all day long, just doing the same thing over and over again. As soon as you start rewiring things, you start seeing things differently. You start seeing opportunities that would be an open door for you. You start sensing, oh, hey, this might be a better way to go. Your intuition starts ramping up. We also have dopamine and motivation. And the book Tiny Habits by Dr. BJ Fogg is a really awesome study on dopamine and motivation and how to leverage that to achieve your goals, whatever those goals are. Could be landing a new job, could be losing weight, could be just creating any kind of better habit that you want to create. The way this works is it's about progress, not perfection. That's why he calls it tiny habits. Because when you do one tiny thing in progress to what you want to achieve and you celebrate it, this is the key. The celebration is what changes your brain chemistry. The feel good aspect of you achieved that tiny thing. He talks about how he celebrated flossing one tooth. Well, guess what? The more he celebrated it, the more motivated he was. Not because he was conjuring up some kind of grit and persistence and dedication and perseverance to flossing his teeth. It was because his brain said, hey, that was cool. Let's do that again. I love that dopamine hit, and I got it last time when you flossed a tooth. And it built and built and built. So playing around, thinking about how could you reward yourself? How could you leverage this natural inbuilt reward system that's just part of your nervous system, part of the way you are wired? Celebrate these small wins and give yourself a natural forward movement and motivation. And then, of course, we've got the prefrontal cortex versus the limbic system or the lizard brain, whatever you want to call it. Calm focus keeps the rational brain in charge and stress hijacks it. That's why when you start overthinking the how, you will block your own brain from making any progress. You cannot do anything from fight or flight. The Middle Ground newsletter that I just published for the month of October is all about intention and reaction. You can't be intentional if you're in reaction mode. You just can't. When you're fleeing a burning building, it's all about getting out. There's nothing in there that is sophisticated. You're in fight or flight. You're not planning anything. That's why running towards something and creating a destination is so much more powerful when you're making a career transition than running away from a toxic environment. I coach people on this all the time. We have to create a destination. And yes, there's things that you're going to do, but You're going to think much more clearly. You're going to communicate better. You're going to shine in those interviews when you are focused on the future. When I coach people on how to answer the question, why are you leaving your job? And it's a pretty terrible place that they're trying to get out of. It's always a future focus. You don't talk about what's going wrong. You talk about what is next for you, what makes the most sense, where you want to leverage your skills and strengths and experience. That is prefrontal cortex stuff, my friends. You've got to go from force to flow. This is about brain science and mindset practice. Now, I've been studying heart brain coherence a lot lately, and this is when the emotions and thoughts are in sync. When this happens, your creativity and your intuition kick in at higher levels. And the way you do this is just spending a little bit of time quieting your mind and then focusing on your breath and your heart. Literally, like put your attention on the center of your chest. Feel the breathing. You don't have to tell yourself to breathe, you don't have to tell your heart to beat. When you focus on it, though, you start to release some of these stresses holding you back. Now, what's really cool is when you give your attention to your heart, you start to create coherence with your brain. The brain's operating system is in sync with your heart. When we're in the womb, our brains don't turn on first, our heart turns on first. Our heart is the operating system. Hustle, perseverance, dedication, these are all brain activities. You want to get into your heart and set that first because your brain will always act on who you believe yourself to be. That's why it's so important to set an intention, to visualize yourself doing the new thing, to feel how it's going to feel after you get the thing. We all are setting goals because we believe that goal is going to make us feel better. But you know what? You can decide to feel that way right now. You don't have to wait for the goal to achieve. You're going to move faster towards your goal if you get your heart and brain working in sync with each other. Now, we all have these mental loops, right? We all have these tracks, these neurological pathways that we tend to go down. My life coach talks about it like be a curious watcher of your own brain. This is about noticing what's happening, naming what's happening, and then giving yourself a nurturing, gentle redirect towards what supports your intention. Let me say that again. We have some well-worn neurological pathways. We've had people say things over us that were not helpful, that created patterns that we need to break. Have you ever thought, oh, I want to do this, and you kind of set out on it, and then you give up too easily? Guess what? You were just butting up against some well-worn neurological pathways, some patterns that you didn't deal with. And if you go into the nervous system, you've actually chemically wired your body for those behaviors. So when you start trying to change, your body gets all out of whack and says, wait a minute, that's not how we do it here. And you start slipping in to not just old patterns, but your body is now running the mind instead of your mind running the body. So this notice, name, and nurture practice can help you be more observant about what's going on and gently reset. And physics comes into this as well. There is a phenomenon called the observer effect, that when they observe atoms, they change direction. And it's just the fact of observing them that made them move this way or that way. That tells me that your own observation of, hey, wait a minute, I just got off track here. I just thought a thought, what if this never happens? I just had a thought of, well, I've tried before, but I've always been disappointed. As soon as you recognize that thought and you say it for what it is, this is just a loop. This is just a pattern I've been thinking my whole life. I'm not going to think that anymore. I'm becoming something different. My friends, it will change. And the actions that you will take to achieving your goals, just like going down that river, oh, we had to take some actions. When we came across some rapidly moving water or big giant boulders and rocks in the river, we did have to take action. But you know what? We knew what our intention was. We were in the flow. We were looking ahead. And so that action was inspired action. It was intuitive action. It's amazing how, hey, the river is there to support you. Water does not travel on those big giant boulders. Water goes around those things. We can go around that stuff too in ways that are really, really productive. So, how are you going to work with your brain? Well, first of all, yes, you have to have a clear intention. You have to answer the question for yourself. How do I want to feel when this goal is achieved? And give yourself that feeling right now by visualizing with emotion. The mental rehearsal activities activate the same neural networks as the actual experience. Scientists have tested this out so many times. People who work out, they can go in, they can do a workout, they're measuring their brain while they're working out, and then the next day they measure their brain again, only they're not physically working out, they're just thinking about their workout. Guess what? The same parts of the brain light up. They've done this with athletes, they've done it with musicians. This is exactly what we can do too. When you mentally rehearse and you're activating those neural networks and giving yourself the actual experience mentally and emotionally, you will start to create opportunities. You will, because you'll be seeing them, and you will be inspired to the actions and the how that will get you there. It's really important also to detach from the outcome. Our brain performs best in a state of relaxed awareness. That means you're focused on your state of being and alignment versus the how. Just stay in this relaxed awareness. Course correct yourself gently. We all have to. Hey, I got off course. I procrastinated. I'm working on a big project right now, and I got to tell you, I am reteaching myself some of these things because it's something I absolutely want to accomplish. I truly believe it's part of my mission as a beneficial presence on this planet to complete this project. So I need to course correct. I bet you need to course correct. We need to do it gently instead of judging ourselves for getting off track. And of course, we want to celebrate those little wins. When I get a little tiny bit done on that project, I got to stop when I'm ahead and celebrate it. Something Stephen Kotler talks about when it comes to flow states. If you're in the flow and you're getting stuff done, stop while you're ahead. Stop while you're still in that natural flow state. Don't stop when you hit a wall. You can't celebrate hitting a creative wall or hitting a wall of however many jobs you're trying to apply for, or whatever you're trying to do. Stop when it feels good, celebrate it, and that's where the motivation will come from. So, my friends, goal achievement isn't about grit. It's about the neural coherence and the intentional mindset. Your brain is the most sophisticated goal achieving success system on the planet. Emotion plus vividness equals a result. So ask yourself this question. If you stopped forcing and started aligning, what goal might become effortless? What if it really was just about flowing down that river and allowing the current to take you, making those shifts, working your way around obstacles? It's absolutely possible for all of us. I will talk to you again soon. Take care. If you like listening to this podcast, I invite you to visit the Love Your Work Life website at elissashuck-careercoach.com. On the site, you're going to find free resources and information about all of my coaching programs, everything you need to land a great job, advance your career, and lead and build an awesome team. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and don't forget to follow me on LinkedIn.